State Senator Roger Victory joining us. I was reading somewhere where you guys are obviously working on the budget for this coming fiscal year, which should have began in July, but it was supposed to be $3 billion deficit, but maybe it's not quite as bad as that. Still bad, but not as bad as $3 billion.
No, there's some promising things as I describe, as the hardworking men and women in the state of Michigan are out and about. Even I will say, even regardless of some of the overreach of the governor's executive orders, we've been able to open some of the economy up, still being safe and being smart about it. And I think that has demonstrated, I think, more work needs to be done. And because we've been able to understand COVID, still operate in a safe and secure method, that we can get back to some normality. And that shows right in the budget. And that means there will be money more for schools, more for those services. But if we can't go that direction, and again, we have to be smart and be educated about it. But the overwhelming fear, I think we just need to be not fearful of it, but be intelligent about it.
Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer said the other day she won't be bullied into prematurely opening businesses like movie theaters, bowling alleys, and gyms in the lower half of the state. They're open in the northern half, and she said bullied, and she said that a couple times now. And I don't know about – all I know is that the people that own these businesses have been closed now for basically a half a year, and many are already on the verge of going broke. Just your take on what she had to say.
I find that problematic language. We as legislators were able to take some of the federal CARES dollars and put that for some economic development for our business community. So just yesterday in our greater West Michigan area, some of these grants were approved, and one specifically was in that line of business. And so I was able to call them and say their grant was approved. This was all done to the right place, that facility we have operating in West Michigan to help assist in this here. And the joy and understanding from that person, I just wish the governor could hear that in the voice of their concerns. And they can, again, as I started on this conversation, they can offer a safe and secure environment to offer these amenities, social distancing. They have disinfecting. I mean, I've seen it. I saw the protocols. And so I would encourage the governor to change the dialogue instead of let's be collaborative on this here. And I believe the industry has been very collaborative because they've come with the basic information. Because, again, I'm sure the governor and like myself, we don't want to put anybody in harm, but we can have some joy of life and still be safe and secure in the days of COVID.
State Senator Roger Victory, Republican from Hudsonville, who represents Ottawa County, joining us. Last week you told us that Sonny Perdue, the Secretary of Agriculture, was going to be at a farm in Ottawa County, but I never saw anything more about that outside of what you said to us. Did that happen?
Oh, it certainly did. It was at Crossroads Blueberry Farm right there on M45. So I imagine many of your listeners have gone through that facility or by that facility there. So it was great to have the Secretary of Agriculture there. It was official USDA business. So with that, there was some media there highlighting that with Congressman Bill Huizenga, who's been doing a tremendous job for our district dealing with agricultural issues. So a big shout out for the congressman and his hard work was with Sonny Perdue. There was probably about 14 farmers, including myself there. And we had a very good, frank discussion with the secretary. It was all just puff pieces. It was some good questions of dealing with regulations, sometimes with food safety issues, dealing with accessibility to securing labor and those type of things. So a good, solid dialogue, and he did not dodge the question. So it was, I appreciate that from the Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue.
I know you don't grow green beans, but there is a dire shortage of green beans, especially French-cut green beans you can't find anywhere. Why is there a green bean shortage?
It's the beans are there, but they cannot get them processed. And that's, this was a discussion we had with the Secretary of Agriculture. So right now, the biggest labor crunch is on the processing it. So the farmers can grow it. The farmers are actually able to get the harvesting done. But when it comes to the value-added facilities, the labor, and that's somewhat seasonal labor force, with some of the unemployment benefits out there and other areas, they cannot get the labor into those facilities. And you might talk about the green bean issue, and there are going to be many other situations similar to that. So, you were right on the money, and that was one of the frank discussions being held last week at the Crossroad Blueberry Farm with the Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue.
Interesting. State Senator Roger Victory joining us. Yesterday, federal officials requested information on COVID-19 orders that may have resulted in the deaths of thousands of elderly nursing home residents. I'll just kind of paraphrase the story here. The Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division is evaluating whether to initiate investigations under the Federal Civil Rights Institutionalized Persons Act, not only Michigan, but several other states as well, in requiring admission of COVID-19 patients to nursing homes. Bridge Magazine reports that at the end of July, nearly 2,000 nursing home residents in Michigan died from COVID-19. That's about a third of all the deaths in Michigan. Also, a letter from Melissa Samuel, president and CEO of the Healthcare Association of Michigan, was sent back on March 13th, 3 days after the first case of COVID-19 was reported here in Michigan. Samuel urged the governor to move infected patients to unused facilities. They say the advice was not followed. Instead, Governor Whitmer issued an executive order that required facilities of less than 80% capacity to take in COVID-19 patients. Just your thoughts on what's going on with the nursing homes.
Yeah, I believe the governor owns the situation. She, and especially after we attempted to work with the administration, we passed bipartisan supported legislation to put into best practices of our assisted living facilities. So, taking lessons learned, let's implement best practices. Senator Pete Lucido from the east side of the state was lead on this legislation. He vetted it out, it went through all the proper channels, and offered it up, passed through the House and the Senate, and then the governor vetoed that. So even after lessons learned, she has vetoed the assisted living best practices. And with this here, there were many people from the greatest generations, people that, men and women that made our country great, and yet they were exposed to COVID and with no voice of their own. So I do believe that a number of people, again, are elderly, had no voice in this matter, and I believe let's have some transparency and the light of day on this. And and with that, I always believe transparency never hurts on these issues, especially with the alarming number of 1/3 of those who lost life to COVID were in these type of facilities.
Well, you're in Washington, D.C. When you get back to Lansing, obviously the lawsuit against Governor Whitmer and her executive powers is still going on. It's now going to get moved to the Michigan Supreme Court, I believe, September 2nd or so. What are you guys hearing on that front?
Well, one is we appreciate the quickness of the Supreme Court taking up this case because they had kind of a placeholder on the docket of that there. So again, I appreciate that the voice of the House and the Senate, which were members of the lawsuit, going forward, that we will have a quick voice on this and have a hearing in the state Supreme Court. And while that is going on, there's some other measures that have taken place that we're working on to make sure that that the House and the Senate does have a voice in governing in the state of Michigan.
When you get back to Lansing, what are some of the bills that you're working on that maybe we don't know about?
Well, some of the key items is, of course, we're working on the budgetary items, but there's some issues even on like work permits for our minors as we go forward. There's some things with lessons learned under COVID, and yet how do we expand that work permits for our young people out there as they attend our career line tech centers and that, because as we demonstrate in our economy, right now the building trades are just booming. As we highlight, there's some issues of securing labor, so we want to make sure that we can accelerate that learning experience and make it a safe learning experience, but codify some of the stuff in the law with lessons learned during COVID.
Well, Senator, we always appreciate your time. We wish you safe travels back from Washington, D.C., and we always want to thank you for coming on a radio station each and every week, okay?
It's a beautiful thing when I can get back home, because there again, in D.C., it's a beautiful city, but my heart's in West Michigan, and I just can't wait to get back home. So looking forward for that plane to hit the tarmac at Kent County Airport later today. Thank you.
All right. Have safe travels, sir.